My dear friend, Paul Luftenegger, it is so, so good to connect with you again. Thank you for joining us for this special series of Ask the Author.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm so happy. I'm so happy to meet today with you and everyone.
Yes, and I'm so grateful that we get to share so much of you, your music, your stories with the world. And I have to give first a big thanks and a big shout out to our mutual friend, Sister Dr. Jenna from the Brahma Kumaris Meditation Museum, because it's because of her and her show, America Meditating Radio, that I met you a couple of years ago at our retreat up in New York.
I love it.
Yes, yes. And so we have so much to talk about. Oh my gosh, I don't even know how we're going to get it all done. Actually, we won't. This is just phase one. Let's just say it that way.
Okay.
First and foremost, I'm really, really, really so touched and grateful that you shared the story that you did in our new book, Magic and Miracles. Because since I met you, your life is just like one big miracle. And I know that's something that you actually tell the rest of us, that, you know, we are miracles. But really just first and foremost, reading this story that you share about, you know, the sixth sense and understanding what you call our inner divine sacred technology, which sounds like so fancy. But it's amazing because in addition to you being this, you know, international multi-award winning singer, songwriter, composer, you are also a medium. You are an Ascension guide and you're clairaudient. So, I mean, oh my gosh, there's so much for us to get into. First and foremost, gosh, you know, I know that part of your journey into what you're sharing on a global stage today started in another part of your story, which is in the other book. But talk to us just briefly about how your father taking his life opened up this whole other space for you.
Well, absolutely. So first of all, thank you for all of those beautiful pleasantries. And I'm so grateful to be here with you. I just want to say before we start, just I'm so grateful that you asked me and that this was a part of really this book, because really life is full of magic and miracles. So we know something that I know that we are sort of on fire with what we do. And it's that divine synchronicity and divine alignments happen because life is made of those things. So I just wanted to sort of backtrack to my childhood, because without that, I don't think that we can really sort of I think, leap forward together, because we all have this childhood. And I know I was watching a video of you today share about your childhood. And I think we need to go back there first to leap forward into what happened in 2011 with my father's suicide. So long story short, if we just condense this down, I know for sure that everyone has an inner voice from childhood in some way, shape, or form. And I know you had it. I know I had it. And I know most of the people that we work with have it. And I think every person probably, you know, obviously kind of attracted to magic and miracles have an understanding in some way, shape, or form of what you're sort of talking about in this book and what the authors are bringing to light in this book. What I love about this book is that I feel that we're in a collective consciousness of 21 authors. Really, really, really important here, because I think we're a lot stronger together, united, than separated. And I love a book by one author. It's wonderful. You know, that's great. It has a certain purpose. But this is a book with 21 people, and that's powerful because we're uniting what we know together to make a whole. So I just want to honor that. And it's every childhood and every now moment that's created this whole container of divine miracles. And this magical essence is in this book. I guarantee you there'll be miracles that come from it. Yeah. There already is. So kind of going into the childhood, leading into the now, I know that I've always sort of been called to answer the great mystery of life. And I know you did that sort of same thing as a child. And it's always been this knowingness that that's been my purpose. And in 2011, when my father died by suicide, I felt proof of heaven on earth before I found out he was dead. And I always say that morning you could cut the room with it was so thick, angelic balm of love. You could cut the beauty with a knife. It was that thick. And it was sort of that calm before this psychotic storm that happened afterwards. And what they say about suicide is it's a psychotic break, which is kind of what I feel it is. But God showed up that morning, and I had the most beautiful, beautiful morning of my life that morning. And I know it was to remind me that we could get back to that.
Yeah.
So, in 2011, what happened is I will never forget sort of, it went from that calm into this crazy, crazy state of 911, which is what we call if you're in Europe, you don't dial 911, but that's our emergency number. And that's what you call. And I remember going from this calm peace and beauty and serenity with God, really in my total awareness, not knowing that's what it was, now knowing it is. I went into this state of many, 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 many months and years of trying to understand what happened. And the morning that happened, what's really interesting is I will never forget going in front of the mirror and praying into the mirror to God within the center of my pupils. And never forget what happened is that I started to realize that nothing on the outside mattered. The only thing that mattered was what was on the inside. And this whole shift happened, like it like threw me into a spin. And it's been sort of unraveling or unfolding since that day. And God has shown up for me every single day. And I remember praying while I was giving my statement to the police. I remember praying to God because I was about to collapse with pain, really. And I will never forget sort of that moment where God said, there will be blessings that come from this that you cannot even imagine. And I remember thinking, like, the oddity of those two kind of conundrum sort of thoughts and presence and so much spinning around in the external world. But I just felt God sort of like within my whole being, knowing that I would be okay. And, what's sort of interesting, fast forwarding is, you couldn't write what's happened in the last 8 years if you tried. It's been, from singing at the UN 3 times, the United Nations in New York, having my music used for Louise Hay's 90th last birthday on Earth in front of 2,000 people live streamed around the world, meeting people like you and the wonderful human beings that are on this planet to help this world actually become heaven on earth. And all of those divine synchronicities that happen once you I always say that I was sort of off my track before, like a train. I was off. And then God put me back on there when I prayed to God, when I was on bended knees, and I got back on my track. And ever since then, everything's sort of divinely aligned.
I think, gosh, there's so many things I want to unpack here. The first one is being in such despair on that day and praying into your own eyes, into your soul, calling out for God. I think that so many of us do have these enlightenment or epiphany experiences. It's just, I'm so struck by, even every time you tell me the story and reading your words in this book, I still am like, how can you get your head around God creating that much peace in you to even move forward? Because most of us think when even just losing a pet, we're dog lovers, losing a pet, losing a loved one, most people really just want to go hide as they're grieving. And yet you had to pick up and move forward. So how do you describe, and you're young, you were young. How do you describe that sense of peace and how do you describe that? Other than, okay, it's God, right? That trumps all, but.
Well, what happened? So in that space, what's sort of interesting about that is I always say that life happens in 360 degrees around you. And the real question is, are you paying attention?
Yeah.
Because if you're not, and this is the big thing that people don't understand, I think, is that the world and the universe and God is providing everything you need, and not just to your right or not just to your left, all around you that's whole. So until you sort of look around and see what's going on, there are signs if you're paying attention from your heart. And I will say one of the things that I did, and I'll share this little piece, I was guided from within to go within to heal. So I used to pray, but, I had an out of body experience when I was probably in grade 6, which, 12 years oldish. And I had a teacher that taught me how to meditate when I was in school. And that sort of showed up for me again after my dad died. So I feel life has prepared you for the moment of now in all now moments, right? So I went back and did a life review on my whole life from the first 2 selves that created me all the way through. And I was shown from God all of these things to do. So to go inside your inside and find the diamond light moments and bring them forward into the now, and let go of any of the past pain in any of those moments in childhood. Let them go, let them go, let them go, so that you can fill up with God. And that process started to happen for me through meditation very fast after my dad died. And what's interesting is those diamond light moments I planted in my heart is how I would explain the secret sacred garden within. And I've basically flourished those diamond light seed moments from my childhood with love from God every single day, with faith, with commitment, with total surrender. And the reality is I was in denial that I could do it really for a while until I started to see things show up. But you got to pay attention. Yeah. And you have to also reach out and seek what you feel your heart needs to have. And your heart is the great compass. So I followed my heart, and I would say what happened is I went from my head to my heart, and then my heart realigned my divine mind with God. So that process, takes however long. You have to be patient. So in being patient, that's the big challenge, because you have to let it go in a natural, organic timeline, which is God's timeline, not yours. And the thing that's interesting is the more you start putting that out into the world, it comes back to you. So all of that said, that's how I found my peace, through service, because when you give, you receive. And when you really, quite frankly, stand up for God is when you start to receive the miracles. So that's really what happened. And I know you do that too.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. Well, one of the other unfoldings of your magical journey, we're kind of making it sound like, okay, God showed up on that day and everything has been smooth sailing. But like any good hero on a journey, when God told you to play music, you said no.
I did say no.
It's the hero refusing the call.
I put the brake. I was like, I remember like metaphorically like hitting my brake as hard as I could, going, "You've got the wrong one, not me. No. Like, go find someone else." And the thing that's funny is whenever I would tap in with God, God would just smile and just be like, "Okay." And like, quite frankly, I couldn't deny it if I tried, because there was nothing else in the outside world that I cared about, actually, other than the space I felt within with God, with music. Right. So, and then what's interesting is I didn't know how I would pay for it. I didn't know how it would happen. I didn't know how I would go. I didn't know how to go to a studio and record. But all these things started to just come to me, and little whispers would come. Have you thought of Kickstarter? Have you thought of crowdfunding? People would send me messages, and I was like, and the reality is I was like, oh, I'm never going to do that. I don't want to embarrass myself. No, I can't ask for money. But then I thought, well, what does that mean if I don't listen to where, that metaphorical sort of conversation where I remember as a kid, God showed up to save you 3 times and you didn't listen. And then when you got to heaven, you went, God, why didn't you save me? And then the reality is that I remember the story being, God said, I tried 3 times. Yep. And so that's the message coming through, to listen to people that are giving you the solution to your problem, not your ego's version of, that. So.
Exactly. Yeah. And so you did follow through. You did your first Kickstarter. You're on your 6th album, and you've just launched a Kickstarter campaign for your next album, which I'm so excited is going to include meditations. So yes. I'm hoping that these processes that you're talking about, I love this visual that you've just given me of taking these diamond light moments and planting them in our heart and then like filling it with God love. I hope that you're going to have like some guided meditation for that in this new
Yeah,
CD.
yeah, I will. And it's funny, I wrote a song yesterday, and I have to say, I really, like, what happens is you just have to open up the space for God, and God comes through. It's really that simple. It's user friendly. Um, the thing that's funny is we human beings make things so complicated. It's really easy. Go to God, go to source, go to the universe, open up your crown and bring in that divine nectar. And it's that simple. So that simplicity is what I feel. And it's interesting. This album that I'm doing now, which is really cool, is about actually inner peace. So that's and I love that the dog's barking, by the way, because that's a sign. So let's all just acknowledge that, because it's like, yeah, the dog knows. You betcha. Yeah.
Yeah, she
But
always wants to be heard. She's like, oh,
yeah,
you think you're going to sing? I'm going to sing.
I love it. But anyways, just what I know to be very true is that this album, this next space, is the seventh album, which I know is a part of aligning with this book. I feel there's miracles that we are here to bring to light together as we hold hands with those that are awakening or awakened. And this album's going to have some really cool stuff on it. I wrote a song yesterday that blew my mind away. Yeah, so just funny.
I love it. I love it. So, I have to, gosh, I'm all over the place in today's conversation, but I have to say one thing. The first time that I met you, which is now almost, I guess it is 2 years ago or three?
It's probably close to 3, yeah.
Yeah. So I remember how you shared the story, and then you were even still a little timid to sing for us at this retreat. But something that happened to me as a result of knowing you was I remember sitting there, and this is a confession moment. I remember sitting there in such judgment, like, Paul, you just need to sing. Like, why doesn't he just sing? And for people who haven't yet heard Paul's music, Paul, your music is so unique. There's no real way to describe it. It doesn't fit any genre. You can't say, oh, it's, gospel music or it's just its own genre. And now having some of our mutual friends playing it for their pets, playing it in hospitals, playing it for people who are sick, like, it's transformative. And so there was this part of me that was hearing these stories, and I'm thinking, his voice is like filled with this rich energy and essence of the divine, and then your piano playing. So I'm like, he needs to just sing. And I got smacked upside the head, because that's how my relationship with Source is.
Me
For
too.
you, God sometimes just whispers and smiles at you gently. God will just smack me upside the head like, girl, are you not listening?
Yeah.
And I got filled with that same judgment that I was sending to you. I had reflected back at me, because the divine had been telling me for years, sing, sing, sing. But I stayed in judgment. Well, I'm not as good as so-and-so, or my voice isn't this, or I don't want to be a star. I don't want to be, like, all this stuff. And, it was when you and I were in India with our friend Sister Jenna and so many of these other beautiful souls from the America meditating show that I was sitting in Baba's meditation room and I got smacked upside the head again. I'm like, oh, I'm getting smacked in India as well. And I just thought of you, and I had to send like such compassion to you for my own judgment. Like, I get it. We say no. We deny even the call from the divine until we finally say yes.
I have to tell you, while we're in confession, let's tell some truth here too. When I first met you, I really, quite frankly, I was just like, I just didn't see you, really. I'll be honest. Like, I did not see you the way that I know you now. And what's really interesting is this is God. Again, I got smacked upside the head with you. And it's so funny because I met you, and, we had a nice like meal together, and, there was lots of people there. But what's really interesting is, I had some sort of, we all have judgments, but we, like, if it's not like going the way that you want it to, you go like, well, I'm done with that, whatever. And what's so funny is you kept showing up wherever I was. So I flew from Bermuda to this wonderful retreat kind of in Spain. And I'll never forget, I finally think I saw you in Spain. And I'm in this room to sing for all these people. My first sort of invitation to this big kind of thing for me. And you're there in the corner just waving your hand. Paul. And I was like, Andrea Pennington, Dr. Pennington's in Spain, waving at me. And I just flew in and I went and sat with you. And then, we were just on a mountaintop in India. And again, what's so funny is I think that we have so much to bloom together for God, actually, and for what we know, what we've learned through, quite frankly, kind of living in some densities of some hard parts of being human. So I love that you are teaching me things I need to know that I didn't possibly see myself. Really, I have to tell you, thank you for that, because I think often, again, that's that reminder that life happens in 360 degrees. Are you listening? Because that's how God works in the alchemy of life, literally in manifest. So, and then now that we've got this book, I'm sort of interested to see what blooms, because our energies united are so much lighter and so much brighter with God than us alone, the we. So I just want to thank you for agreeing to do this we, because we're in this new sort of alchemy that's, I think, about to leap forward with many people waking up.
Oh, yeah. I so feel that. I do, Paul. And I think what this book has done for me, for me, it started off as a wish. Wouldn't it be so cool for people to tell their miracle stories? Because people tell me all the time, because I'm into it, and I'm like, gosh, wouldn't it be awesome if the world knew that just everyday people? You're not an everyday person, but
we all are. No, I am. I really am.
Well, wait till we get to the mediumship stuff. Okay, no, but seriously, I thought people need to know that we're not alone. I felt like such a freak for so many years, thinking that I was the weirdo, being clairaudient and clairsentient and all of that. And the idea that we all have these abilities and gifts, maybe not to the same degree, and it's not about trying to be like anyone else. It's about accepting that as this is our instrument, we can tune into our senses in different ways. For some people, it arrives in visions or dreams. For some people, they hear voices or whatever, like me. But I think that this book and this tribe of people who are willing to share the mystical, the magical, miraculous things that happens in their lives is going to open up a space for us to step up and really even develop them even more.
100%. I so agree. And the thing that's really neat about what you just shared in that is that all of these new spaces are, I think, ultimately where we sort of get out of our own way of our belief systems that we were sort of programmed with. And I will say, I know in many kind of stage scenarios, and I think you probably heard me say this, I came out of the closet once for being gay, but it was way harder to come out to be spiritual, which is so ridiculous. And
I know.
So afraid of, and I have to say, even still, sometimes I get a little choked up in my throat just to say the truth. But the reality is that we're more alike than we are different in this metaphysical way. And I think that we've oppressed it so much by what someone else told us to be, rather than becoming who we really and truly are, which is, quite frankly, a piece of God, in the truest sense of understanding. And when you start looking at other people as pieces of God, you change the entire structure and fabric of this world. So that's, I think, our mission as we sort of share this truth. So thank God you shared yours. I am so grateful for the other 20 authors in this book that did too.
Exactly. So let's talk about this other piece of truth that I have come to know about you, because the first year and a half of knowing you, I just knew you as this singer, songwriter, musician, and that you had this healing ability with your music. And then you opened up and shared that people who have passed on, some of the amazing spiritual teachers that many of us grew up on, like the late, great Wayne Dyer, Maya Angelou, Louise Hay now, you hear from them, you channel them. So let's just get into this whole idea of you as a medium. Was this also something that you saw from childhood, some abilities?
Yeah, so what I know now that I didn't understand then, because nobody really sort of explained this to me, is our house my parents would go on vacation and our house would fill up with, I mean, I'm talking about thousands of souls. And I was just like, whoa, please leave. You're scaring me. And I had to just stop it. Like, no, 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 no. Like, please leave. I have chills just saying it because I feel them. And the reality is that I was the kid that always went to psychics. I got in trouble for calling the psychic hotline all the time. Like I just was that kid. So I think it's sort of funny because I knew, I just didn't know, But so going to the question you've just said, what I had happened, and this is really interesting, I had a vision that Louise Hay would pass. I didn't say this to anyone when I was there. I knew that she was going to not be around much longer. Let's just say that. I would never say that to anyone. It was my own personal understanding. But I knew. And then when she died, or when she transitioned is a better word, I know for sure it was a moment that really mattered. And what's sort of interesting that people don't know is I never had the chance to meet her. So it was a weird moment because I was invited up on the stage, and I'm one of those people, like, I don't want to be the center of attention. So I was invited on the stage after my song was used for her birthday, and everybody, 2,000 people put their hand on their heart. And what's funny is she came through after she transitioned so clearly, and through the woman that took care of her for the last 15 years. She shared with me that the gift I gave that day to her was actually shown to Alia, is her name, and actually sort of was used while Louise was transitioning. My music, the gift I gave that day, which hadn't been opened, actually was used the day that she transitioned, and that process in space, holding it open as she sort of crossed over. And what's interesting is Louise showed up for me in Bermuda, actually probably around this time last year. And I have clairaudience, but she showed up. I've never heard a voice stronger. She was like, Paul, ask Alia, she'll know what to do. And I'm not joking. And I woke up, and this was from my sleeping state, which has never happened. And I was like, I woke up and she was still with me on my right-hand side in my room. And I often have visits in the morning space is when they come.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget this space. And what's really interesting is Alia and I have been very, very close in conversation pretty much ever since she transitioned. So this is the sort of thing I'm talking about. And I don't think I'm unique. I think we all have this ability. But what I talk about in this book is that we have to understand there's a divine inner technology. And you have to turn up your love frequency or your love vibration from your heart. And you have to do it with commitment and your free will with God. And that's what I'm talking about in this book, because until you do that, these inner divine technologies really can't bloom because they're all based on frequencies of love. So going back into this medium sort of statement or question and this knowingness that we know more and more of, I have a whole team on the other side that actually have transitioned since my awakening. So Dr. Emoto is another one that's with me. Wayne Dyer's always with me, actually a lot more than I talk about. And Maya Angelou, Dr. Maya Angelou is one of the greatest ascended masters that I've ever met, actually, personally. And I think it's crazy, the year that my dad died, she came to my hometown and she didn't travel at this time much. She came to give a lecture at the University of Western Ontario here in London, Ontario, and I will never forget seeing her. And I was blown away. And she came here to honor the Underground Railroad. But these are the things I am talking about. So God shows up for you when you're ready. And I think that if anyone's watching this, you're ready. If anybody's reading this book, you're ready. And as we sort of work together and bloom and grow divine love, divine understanding, this inner sacred technology that we all have comes online. So that's sort of what I talk about in this book a little bit with you. And there's much more to expand upon. So I have a feeling you should buckle up, Andrea, because I think you're in for a ride of your life.
Man, you just, okay. Yeah. So now you're speaking prophecy. It's I'll be honest. It's the shift has been happening for me over the last couple of years. And our dear friend, our mutual friend, Sister Dr. Jenna,
Dr. Jenna.
she has like initiated some things a couple of years ago. But you know what? Like you, I have learned to just say, okay, yes, and I surrender. It's not my will, but it is the will of Source to use me as a vessel for me to evolve so that I can reflect that back out to the people that I touch so that we can all wake up. And there's one thing that I've said, and I've said this to all of the authors that we publish, not just our group books, because a lot of people will come to me, and you'll get it. I think I don't know if I've told you this before, but a lot of people will come and say, well, who am I to write a book? Who am I to share this story? And I say, you know what? I've lived that. When I had my very first inclination to share on a public stage, I was a doctor at Discovery Channel, and I had just shared a presentation about the 5 keys for living heart healthy, very basic. And there was this woman, Rita, who I thank to this day, who was standing behind me as I was coding HTML, because they've literally made us learn how to code HTML at Discovery. And she said, I see what you're doing there. And I was like, yeah, I'm writing this blog about the 5 keys for living heart healthy that I just done a keynote on. And she said, don't give that away. That's a book. And I thought, who am I to write a book? I mean, there's already Wayne Dyer doing all that psychology stuff, and Deepak Chopra, and Dr. Christiane Northrup. Why would anybody want to hear from me? And she said, you're a different voice. Even though you may have a similar message, you're a different messenger. And if you have anything inside of you that wants to come out, that means there's already an audience out there. And so when people started coming to Make Your Mark Global to get published, and they said, well, I don't know, who am I to write? All these great Hay House authors, they're already doing it. And I said, you know what? There's a change coming. We are all being called to step up our game. The stuff that you've learned from these other masters and you've applied in your own life or with your clients, there's a whole new world of people awakening who may not have ever heard of Wayne Dyer. They may not have ever read these other books. And now they're ready to tune into your message. And that was a big thing for me to finally recognize that, okay, I'm sharing some very similar messages to other people, but the way I hear it and receive it is a little different. And of course, the way I say it is very unique. So I definitely agree with you. I think I am in for a new ride as coming out with this book for all of everyone else is also a coming out for me, and really totally owning the fact that I've had these, weird psychic abilities and seeing visions and all that. So in your abilities to serve as a medium, you work with people one-on-one. You're also teaching people this process that you have for, well, go ahead, you describe it.
Well, what I wanted to share and touch on, first of all, what you just shared, I just have to say was amazing. So I'm going to make one prediction before we move to that, is that I guarantee you the thing that you're doing that's very different, Andrea, is that you're actually listening and acting on things that it isn't about fame. And this is the thing people don't get. And I'm really tired. I'm going to say this out loud because I think we need to say this. This world is obsessed with fame, and fame has no place in this stuff. And being famous, we have to start I think the big question and the big answer here is we need to start becoming responsible who we make famous, because that's going to be the future. So I'm just saying that out loud. Thank God, literally, you're doing this, because you are a genius, and so are the people in this book, because they've followed their inner divine technology, knowingness of what we really are. So I just had to say kudos to you for that. So moving on to answer this question about people that have come to me, what I wanted to share about my one-on-one work, what people don't understand about music is it's a frequency and a vibration. And I'm going to say this, it's a frequency and vibration of God in this case, because I wasn't big enough to do this alone. This is co-created with God. You can judge me for saying, I really don't care, actually. I'm saying that out loud. This is so much bigger than me. And what people don't understand is we have to turn up our frequency in love. So we have to claim it. My music claims it for the listener, with God. So together, because we're way more than just us. alone. So the thing that has happened in my one-on-one sessions, which happened from my music, so my music led people to me, literally to my door. Hello. And I have met some pretty damn amazing people that have really developed psychic skills, medium skills. They come to my door. And in my one-on-one sessions that I've had, what's really interesting is people are like, I don't understand my gift. I don't understand how it works. And my team on the other side tells me what to share with them. And one of the messages that I'll share with everyone today that has come through with most of these people, and this is the interesting ascension process, is that the messages are feather light and lighter than a feather. And that message is directly from my team on the other side, because when we're developing these things, they feel like whispers that we don't really listen to, but they're as light as a feather because they're loving light, and they're not going to be oppressive, and they're not going to be dense. They're going to be actually light. So the messages that come through from my team are always feather light, and I'm to remind people of that lightness that they come from, but you have to be still enough in your love to hear them, because if you're not going to hear them. They're just not like that. And then, of course, as you mentioned, there's the thumbs upside the head. Those are not the same thing. Those are wake the up, right? And the thing that I know to be true is if we want to start sort of really understanding the inner technology, it comes from turning up our frequencies of love, which mean if you're watching the news today, you're not going to get that frequency of love because it's filled with fear mongering to basically put you into the fight or flight scenario. And the reality is it's really great for ratings, but it's not good for your soul. Just telling you. So if you want to get the messages from spirit, from God, you have to be at peace within yourself. And that means that you have to find the tools, which my music is, your book is, and these authors' work is. And that's where you're going to find this inner space of peace, because all of that has to do with honoring the divine within and the divine without. So that's not going to come from the news that's on the TV today. So anyways, that's kind of where we're at with that.
I love it. So people can connect with you musically or through mediumship or otherwise at bekindness.com. And I definitely encourage people to do that and download, get access to the previous 6 albums and 2 singles, and find out about this new album of meditations that will really help us. So I want to talk a little bit about the idea of really owning one's gifts as clairaudient or clairsentient. Do you have now a daily practice that helps you really tune in? Because you describe them as feather light and light as a feather. For me, meditation has helped enormously because I've trained myself to be still, to be quiet, and to listen, most importantly. What about you?
So you're talking about essentially spiritual practice, right? So first of all, I just want to say that everyone has to develop their own, because, it's like a prescription, in my opinion. It's a prescription for yourself. And I always say this, the real guru is oneself. So you have to become your own guru, because until you do, you're not going to really find the spiritual practice that's evolving, quite frankly, for you. So my spiritual practice, personally, I'll answer this, for a long time was music, and it still is at times, but it's become a lot more. So I always say that the messages often come through in the morning. There's this alchemy between your waking state, and I always talk about this with people in my one-on-one sessions. There's a space between where you wake up and where you start your day. And if you can just sort of wiggle in that space, close your eyes if you need to, and just sort of feel what's in that space, you're going to find some stuff in that container space, because it's where you become sort of like in that lighter, peaceful presence into the day. And the other one that's really important that I do is in the nighttime space, really wiggle in the space between sleep and falling into that kind of inner space as well of sleep. Those are 2 big, practices that I have that are pretty continuous. I will say I also bless my water. The first water I drink in the day, I bless it every day, and I fill it with my intentions of love, peace, joy, happiness, prosperity, good health. And water holds vibrations. We're made of it. So when you put it in, the first thing in is that. So that spiritual practice, I always find a rainbow in my water before I make coffee, in the water, and then I fill that water with all of the love that I can put from God into it. So that's one of my spiritual practices that I do every day. And then the other thing is meditation. And meditation's one of those things where I know the busier I'm getting, it seems harder to find that space more for me right now. But I think, like anything, you do what you can when you can. And it doesn't have to be, an hour meditation. It can be just 3 minutes or 5 minutes. And I think driving's a great time to just sort of, zen yourself. And it's a good, I know Louise Hay used to talk about driving is a good exercise of kind of where you're at spiritually, because if you're going crazy in the car, it kind of says a lot about where you're at.
Yeah.
And I think, I can get into that, like, crazy in the car. But if you practice this sort of inner flow, I think the car is a really great time to sort of, or the bus, or the subway, but take time where you have that silence with yourself to sort of go within.
I love it. Such wisdom, such humility, such grace. It's so, so wonderful to connect with you, Paul. And I'm so excited that we have these opportunities ahead of us now to collaborate, to expand even more love. So I will invite everyone to connect with you also online. In the description for this video, we'll share all of your social media links, because Paul also goes live on Facebook on Sunday for the Love Expanding Love journey. Tell us about that, because you really felt like that was also something that you were called to do, right?
Yeah, so I'll just share with everyone, one of the things that God showed me after my dad died was this mantra. And it's so funny because it was a mantra of love, become love, expanding love. So, divine love is what holds everything together. So what I realized very quickly after my dad died was if I wanted to truly heal, I had to become love, expanding love in manifest, which means you have to, as above, so below, as within, so without. So that's sort of the process of love, expanding love. And my Facebook, so I will share. So my third album really was actually Love, Expanding Love. And it's actually sort of my fourth, but my third, if you will. And the thing that's sort of interesting is I didn't know what to call this. And this album was the first crowdfunding that I did. And what I realized through Love, Expanding Love is that when people put or share love into something with you, which is similar to your book, what happens is it's a container of timeless vibrational love and divinity. And what's really cool about Love, Expanding Love as a mantra, and also as an understanding, when you reach out with your love to people that you know or don't know, what happens is it goes quantum more and more and more. And if we all do Love, Expanding Love, we create heaven on earth, because we're living essentially the golden rule, which is we treat others the way we want to be treated, with love and respect and consciousness. So when we take responsibility for the energy we create, it really is love, expanding love, because I think that most people would want nothing but to be loved and to be love. And that really beautiful space that we understand of heaven is loving. And I always say to everyone, if we're all going to heaven together, shouldn't we probably start actioning that right now? Like, really? Do you think you can go to heaven and just like be a tyrant? I don't think that's going to work,
Exactly.
So to me, I think it's really time to grow up as a planet. And I think we're on the planet, in my opinion, with some of the best souls that have ever been, old as can be, timeless as can be right now. So that love, expanding love is an important message from God, actually. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Paul, I could sit here and talk to you all day. Well, once again, I thank you, and I want to honor you for the beautiful, miraculous gift to this world that you really are, because you are just sharing so generously and with such humility in all that you do. And that's really inspiring, because you are so accomplished and you are so amazing. So thank you again for sharing your story in this book, Magic and Miracles, as well as the other book, Life After Trauma. So we'll share that conversation in another interview. But from the bottom of my heart, I thank you.
And thank you so much. And to everyone watching, thank you. Andrea Pennington, Dr. Pennington is a genius. So thank you so much for letting me be a part of this. It's a great miracle in and of itself. So thank you.
It is. So there you have it, my friends. Connect with Paul online, get your copy of the book, and share this interview or share this book with someone else who needs a little bit of positivity sprinkled into their life. And you can certainly pass on Paul's music, which is transformative and healing. Until our next interview, remember that you are a gift to the world, so share your presence with passion. Much love. Bye. Did you enjoy that interview? I sincerely hope so. If you did, remember to click that like button and share this video with someone else who needs a little positivity sprinkled into their life. And please do support the author by purchasing the book at your favorite bookstore. If you or somebody you know would like to spread your own message to the world, then check out our publishing options online at makeyourmarkglobal.com. We specialize in helping healers, coaches, lightworkers, and other soulful entrepreneurs who want to share their message with a global audience. We also do speaker training and authentic personal branding. I look forward to connecting with you again, and until then, remember, my friend, you are a gift to the world. So share your presence with passion. Much love.